Black History Month you find
Ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month?
Well,
Come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not? Do you want one?
No.
No, I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
Message.
Wow. GATV family was good. That was an interesting exchange between Morgan Freeman and Mike Wallace on Black History Month. Now, whether you agree with Morgan Freeman or not, he makes a compelling argument. Now, I have several thoughts on this matter, and I can see both sides of the realm on this issue. But nonetheless, I thought it was interesting that, we take a look at a particular segment between Joe Rogan and Daryl Davis. And folks, if you don't know who Daryl Davis is, he's a brother that's been doing a few bridging of the gap between white extremism and black folks here in the US. Particularly, he goes after KKK members and try to convert them away from the Klan. Now, I'm not going to waste my time trying to convert anybody away from where they stand in terms of the Klan. But nonetheless, I respect this brother, and I just want you guys to really listen to this interview he had on the Joe Rogan podcast. And nonetheless, it brings up a very compelling argument. And this is a matter that I need you guys to turn down your emotions, think logically, and then give a sound opinion on that comment section. I would love to have a dialogue with you guys. And after we go through this video, down the road, I'm gonna bring it up again so we can have a live discussion. So let's check out Daryl Davis with Joe Rogan on the matter of Black History Month.
Check out Martin Luther King. All right, we had to fight for decades to have Martin Luther King Day. There was a lot of resistance to that. Do you realize that, and a lot of the resistance was the fact that Martin Luther King is the only American man in this country to have a holiday all to himself. Really? And guess what? He's black.
What do you mean by a holiday all to himself? What about Columbus Day?
Columbus is not an American.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Well, he kind of was when he became.
No, he thought he.
Well,
no.
he did. First of all, Columbus didn't even land here, and he was basically a serial killer.
He was a serial killer. He was a rapist and a pillager, and he didn't discover a damn thing.
Did they call it Indigenous Peoples Day now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how do you discover something when you get there? People are already there. Come on, be real.
Well,
right?
Not only that. Why did it take until basically the latter half of the 20th century before people came to grips with the fact that he was an atrocious human being? When we were kids, I'm a little bit younger than you, I'm 52. When I was in high school, it was Columbus. Just sailed the ocean blue, the Pinta, the Santa Maria.
Right, Nino Pinto and Santa Maria.
This was a guy who was an explorer. He was going there for Spain.
Right.
And then when you get older and you read these missionaries' accounts of the horrific crimes, and
we still celebrate them.
Yeah, well, do we sort of celebrate? We kind of are done celebrating them, right?
No, we still have Columbus Day. It should be abolished.
It's Indigenous Peoples Day now.
No, they call it that.
Yeah.
But we on the counter it still says Columbus Day.
Does it?
Yeah.
Not on the Apple calendar.
Really? That's cool.
I don't think so.
Maybe Apple's ahead of its time.
I think it says Indigenous Peoples Day now.
Okay, that's cool.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it fucking should.
It should.
Yeah.
Now, so we used to have two white guys who each had a holiday all to himself. Americans.
Who are those guys?
We used to have, maybe before your time, during my time, George Washington Day and Abraham Lincoln Day.
Really? What were those days?
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And then, so we had too many holidays, so they combined those 2 days into President's one day called President's Day.
Oh, Okay, we
Those
have
were
too many holidays, not enough productivity.
Exactly. So they took those away and combined them. So now the only American man who has a holiday to himself is a black man, and they can't handle it. Martin Luther King. And now we had to fight for decades to give this man a holiday when he gave his life to bring this country together. Yet we give a holiday to Christopher Columbus, who, as you pointed out, was a murderer, a serial killer, a pillager, a rapist, okay, who didn't discover a damn thing, right? Martin Luther King never murdered, pillaged, and raped, but yet we didn't want to give him a holiday. So that's the inequity in this country. And I'll tell you something else. Now, there are a lot of people who would disagree with me, and that's okay, because we're Americans, we can disagree. We're all individuals, but there are people who will agree with me also. And I've been saying this now for 22 years. One of the things that will help us to advance into the 21st century, because we are behind the times, we need at this point to get rid of Black History Month. Now, I know a lot of people listening are going to freak out. Well, what's this guy talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Let me explain, all right? For the longest time, we needed Black History Month. Black history was not being taught in our schools. Now, you remember when you pointed out a moment ago that when you were in school, Columbus was a hero, looked up to him, etc., and then you go to college and you learn otherwise. When I was in high school, it was not in our textbooks that we had internment camps for Japanese Americans. I did not learn that until I got to college. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Right.
I didn't believe it. Now it's in the textbooks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We're behind the times.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, we didn't have Black history. All right. Yeah. What we had was called American history. It might as well have been called white history, because that's all it was. And even in some cases, whites were being given credit for things they did not invent and for places they did not discover. But we knew, we were told at home, things like that, but not in schools. So we had to fight. And finally, we got 1 week. It was called Negro History Week. Carter G. Woodson created that. And schools had Negro History Week, 1 week a year. We continued fighting harder and harder. Finally, we got 1 month. Nobody's going to give us everything at one time, right? They dole it out little by little. So we got that 1 month. Shortest month of the year, right? February, 28 days.
Yeah,
okay, no coincidence. But but we accepted it for 2 reasons. It was the birth month of 2 of our heroes, Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. All right, so we accepted that, and then we stopped fighting, and that was a mistake on our part. We became complacent. All right, and now it's my belief that Black History Month has become detrimental to us, to all of us, white and black. I'll tell you why. Yes, we needed it for a certain period of time because we had nothing. But here's the problem. We only study Black history in February. And each February, we study the same half a dozen people. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, and 1 or 2 other ones. By the time we get through half a dozen, our month is over. We did our black thing. Let's move on, right? Yet, we study Benjamin Franklin, Eli Whitney, Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Francis Scott Key, all year long. We're constantly reinforcing what they did all year long. We never forget who flew the kite and the lightning hit the key, and we have electricity. We all know it's Ben Franklin, all right? But yet, if you ask some kid in June, say, who was Harriet Tubman? Oh, yeah, I remember her, yeah. She was that lady who refused to give up her seat on the bus. They got her confused with Rosa Parks because there's been no reinforcement since February. And then next February, it's the same half a dozen people, all right? So you're constantly, I'm not taking anything away from those people. They were some of the greatest, all right? But you're constantly reinforcing that there were only 6 or 7 black people in this whole country who ever did anything. What about the guy who invented the traffic light? What about the person who invented the ironing board and so many other black discoveries and inventions? Oh, well, we didn't have time for that. We only have 1 month. Yeah, but you got time to talk about Ben Franklin all year long. You know, Women's History Month is March. We need to get rid of that too. Take these things out of those months and put them where they belong, under the umbrella of American history, and teach them all year long. That way kids get accustomed to this, and they learn, and they have more respect for each other. Look, I remember when I was a kid, Miss America beauty contest. There were only 2 categories, and it was all white women. Black women were not allowed to to compete in Miss America. All the judges were white males. 2 categories: the evening gown, evening wear, and the swimsuit. That was it. Women were objectified. They were sex objects. You know, they didn't have talent. They didn't need to write an essay or show what else they can do. They just looked at and judged on that. So black women were deemed not beautiful enough to compete in Miss America. Plus, they didn't want any white man judging a black woman in a bathing suit or whatever. So black women began having low self-esteem because they were told they were not as beautiful as these other women. So what did we as black people do to elevate the self-esteem of black girls? We created the Miss Black America beauty pageant to give them something to aspire to. And that worked for a while. Finally, Miss America, the big one, came to its senses and opened its doors to
What year was that?
I don't know the exact year, but I guess it was back in the 70s sometime. Opened its doors to all American women, regardless of their ethnicity, color, or whatever. As long as they were American, they could compete. And since that time, we've had more than one Miss America who's been black, starting with Vanessa Williams, and then Debbie Turner, and I think maybe 1 or 2 other ones since that time. So now, because Miss America has come into the time, we can get rid of Miss Black America. We don't need it anymore, right? We got the main one. When are we going to come to American history? We need to get rid of Black History Month. We just finished the first Black American president. What are we going to do with Obama? Are we going to put him in the February box because he's black? Only talk about him in February. Don't talk about him in March or September because he's Black history. Put him in February. Well, you know, I'm at a loss for words, man.
Right.
It's crazy how we do this.
You know, it's somewhat of bravery to speak on matters in the black community that are deemed to be unpopular opinions, because we're a people that, you know, go off of emotions a lot. So when you hear a brother speaks like that, rather than dissecting it intellectually, we'll call him a coon, Uncle Tom. But here's my thoughts on this matter. I've always felt the understanding that black Americans have given so much to this nation. At every centerpiece of the fabric in building this nation has been black Americans by way of Africa, in its origin, of course. And with that understanding and facts, personally for me, I've always felt black history is American history. It should be incorporated with American studies when understanding history all year round. There shouldn't just be this notion of we're only learning about Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and even those main folks they throw at us. If you ever read, folks, it's so much depth into who these people were. So now imagine the many that our younger folks don't know about. Heck, our older folks don't even know about. So this is the problem that I have. And piggybacking off of the introduction where Morgan Freeman asked Mike Wallace, would you want a Jewish History Month? He quickly said no, because he knows, you know, the value of his people. He knows it's not something that is reduced to a month. Now, here's the counter argument. Until you can properly incorporate black history and all its greatness into American history all year round, until you can do this with no scheming, with no redacting of what actual facts were in terms of credit due to great foundational Americans. Yes, black Americans, that is. Until you can have the discipline to make sure there's no manipulation going on and we can teach this accurately, then I say, with critical race theory uproar going on in a lot of the states in this nation, I think Black History Month should be protected. And it goes against my personal stance that Black History Month, it overshadows what a black American means in terms of what they've given to this great nation. But nonetheless, until you can objectively teach black history where you can dissect it properly, no scheming going on, and you can root out the BS that they usually throw at us, until you can really safeguard it, I personally think we should protect Black History Month. And the only reason why I say this, yes, maybe a lot of us, not me specifically, but those of us that are even giving black historians, black history, black greatness our attention for that month, believe it or not, guys, for some it's needed, man. It's really needed. But my overall opinion, without being contradictive, is I personally think the way you move forward with this stuff is you incorporate black history into American history, because that's what it is. There hasn't been any chapters in the United States of America where black Americans haven't contributed or damn near built this entire thing in terms of side by side, however you want to look at it. Some will say they built the entire nation on their own, some will say this and that, but you can't disagree that black people, slaves from Africa, was in every fabric in the upbringing and building of this nation. The construct itself was off of the back of slaves. So I find it crazy that you can be content knowing that your history is so watered down that there are only a few figureheads that are spoken of in a history that's so mass and so rich that maybe it's the emotional side of me that feels affected that that rich history is reduced to only a month. But hey, maybe you guys have different opinions. I would love to hear from it. This was Gravitating Away. Hopefully I've gave you some insight. I don't need your money, your dollars. The only thing I ask for you guys is to like, comment, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, folks, please keep coming back.